The day we got the laser was probably, I would say is like the highest stress day of like the entire startup journey so far. Basically our only option was just like to buy the equipment outright. The rigger shows up and he's like, looks extremely and visibly stressed, throwing papers on the floor. He's like very angry. And I'm like, oh, our laser's not gonna fail.
You actually do have a family. And so, you have like 300K, then you spend 200K on this laser.
We had bet the farm on getting this laser. It was very stressful.
This is Kenneth Cassel, and he is building a autonomous metal fabrication company here in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, not Dallas.
not Dallas, Texas. Not Dallas, Texas. We need to be careful on that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start this off with, you basically didn't initially think that this was, I think, going to be the company that you were going to build.
Yeah.
And I think early last year, right, you decide with like $300,000 or something left in your bank account to pivot into this.
Yep.
And with like $200,000, you buy this like massive laser and you're kind of like betting the farm on this.
Yeah.
What was that like pivot like?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually probably like our third or fourth pivot. So there's like a long backstory.
Do you want to start at the beginning?
I think like the story's like more coherent if we start with like the thing initially before sheet metal. And then we can get into like the backstory. But essentially we were working on this robotic startup, and the bet was that, the software for controlling robots was getting a lot better, right? And so like there was a handful of papers that I saw probably late 2022, late 2023 kind of era, and it was just getting a lot easier to control robots, right? So like the SACAN paper came out. It was this kind of like LLM controlled robotic thing. There was a lot more kind of improvements on like the vision side for controlling robots. And we thought there was some opportunity there, right? And so we basically were building software for off-the-shelf robot arms, and we were trying to rent them out to manufacturers. And so we spent roughly a year working on software in this space.
Yeah.
And we built some really cool software where you could do kind of like text directed pick and place. And the idea was like the major cost of like the robotic systems isn't necessarily in the robot hardware itself. It's like in the integration, right? Mm-hmm. So most robots today are position controlled, right? So you need like a very repeatable process. The robot needs to, pick from the exact same location every time. And there's only like, some subset of...
There's not a whole lot of intelligence in it.
No. Absolutely no intelligence, right? It's just like go to this exact spot, then move or whatever. So we were building a vision-based robotic control, and we were trying to rent it out to manufacturers, and it just felt like an uphill battle, right? And we just weren't getting much traction.
Do you remember what those like early conversations were like?
Well, one, it's really hard. And now being a manufacturer, like I get it. It's really hard to get in front of manufacturers and for them to take you seriously. They're just like absolutely bombarded with people trying to offer them stuff like all the time, right? And so, we spent some time talking to a handful of manufacturers, and we actually didn't get super deep into it. Like we talked to a handful of people, and basically really early on, I could tell like this is not the direction I want to go, right? And I had started talking to other robotics founders, and especially people who had started off like in this kind of robots as a service kind of vertical, and then switching to like providing them the service themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So I talked to a handful of people like that, and I was like really a big believer in that, because like necessarily like the person using the robot's going to get more value out of it than the person renting it, right? So we decided like maybe we should just try to find something to do with robots, and particularly interested in manufacturing, right? And so like that was kind of like the focus the whole time, was like, can we help US based manufacturers? And so we started talking to like hardware engineers, and really like the move particularly into like metal fabrication kind of came from like one like key encounter. A buddy of mine was a robotics founder, and he had left his company and was like working on some random stuff, and he ended up getting into a side project where he was like making these like industrial sheet metal mailboxes and like selling them on Etsy. And
for like lots of money.
They were $3,000 a piece.
$3,000 a piece.
Yeah. And he was like, he was selling a whole bunch of them, but he was turning off his Etsy store like halfway through the month, every month, and then like 1 week into the month. So because he couldn't keep up, and the part that he couldn't keep up with was on the fabrication side, like actually doing the welding, the assembly. It was pretty easy for him to get like the individual components, but actually like getting someone to build the thing for him
was just very difficult.
And so he was like losing out on like tens of thousands of dollars a month because he couldn't find someone to take him seriously, right? Like the big fab shops, they wanted him to place a big order, and then he's like left with like, some dude in his garage that can weld there or whatever, or someone he finds off Facebook Marketplace. And so,
So it was like super fragmented and like sporadic and not
yeah.
great.
And so first we were like, we didn't have any customers. We'd been building software. We were like completely lost. And we were like, hey, like maybe we can like weld some stuff up with some robots for you or whatever. And so he actually moved into his property like the December preceding us launching. So two years ago, 2 Decembers ago.
And was that like his garage or?
It was like a detached garage,
Right.
very dirty, dusty. It was like a small, like
Rickety.
corner, like 10 by 10 square feet area. And we started, hacking on some like robotic welding demos and stuff. And then we decided, like, after hacking on that for a while, we were like, okay, maybe it's like getting a robot to weld it is not the thing necessarily. It's more like, can I just find someone that'll do this? It doesn't really matter if it's like a human or a robot or whatever. And so we started talking to hardware engineers, and we basically found a lot of people had the same problem, right? Like it's pretty easy to get individual components when you need something actually fabricated, assembled, welded together. The lead times and everything like really kind of like go crazy. And so we decided we were gonna.
What was that prior to you guys being a thing?
Prior to us being a thing, so I mean, you might get your, individual components from like a number of like online suppliers or whatever, and then take them to like a local fabricator, or you might just go straight to a local fabricator. But usually it's the same kind of story, right? Like they have like labor challenges, it's hard for them to keep up, the lead times are really long, etc. And so, we decided, okay, well, we need to start cutting metal, right? And at the time, we had a small office, and then we had James's spot, which was like in his little garage. Like his garage was like very remote. There's like deer walking outside and stuff. And so it was like a shack, I guess.
Just in the middle of the wilderness kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like out near near the lake. And so we started looking for commercial property, and we were like, okay, we need to buy a fiber laser or a plasma cutter or something, and we need to move into a building, and we need to actually start cutting
parts.
and like get some customers.
Yeah.
And we knew like we didn't have enough money to keep doing like trying to do the robotics as a service thing, because like even if we could get a customer, it's not like it was going to cover any meaningful amount of burn or like future R&D or whatever. We were like, we have to like go make some money, right? And first we tried to finance the equipment, but like I don't know if you know, but it's like really hard to get financing for a startup with zero revenue for industrial.
All risk.
It's an industrial fiber laser cutter, and you've never cut any metal, and you have no background in manufacturing. So basically, our only option was just like to buy the equipment outright. So like, we had about $300,000 left. We signed the lease on the commercial property. We bought the fiber laser, and then we waited. And the one day I was supposed to show up from Houston. And I got a call from the sales rep, and they had accidentally knocked off the laser from the truck they loaded onto. Right. So then we had to wait an additional 6 weeks for a new one to come in, and it was very stressful. But ultimately we ended up getting the laser. We got it installed. They did the training with us. They were very confused why we didn't have any customers. They were like, "What kind of metal do you typically cut?" And we were like, "We don't know anything about this." And so they trained us, and we started cutting, right? And we started learning. And so like. A big part of what we do is like, we just dive into something new. We learn. We obviously try to learn from like, people that have done it before and stuff if we can. And, but I think like looking at things with like fresh eyes is obviously important. But yeah, the first 3 months ended up going really well. We raised a little round, and we've been live for about a year. So
yeah.
There's a really long-winded way to explain it, but
it's totally perfect. Like what was the first few days in the shop? Because I know that we were talking yesterday, and or maybe it was this morning, and you were saying that basically when you bought this laser, it's like 30 feet.
Yeah.
And the shop is not massive.
Yeah.
It's like the new one that you're getting is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
What was it like taking delivery of that laser and setting up the shop?
Yeah, I would say that was like okay, when we first got the shop, we got it like a month before we got any equipment.
Yeah.
And it was just me and Alfredo in a warehouse. Just sitting at 2 desks, and it was like very empty, and the space felt really, really big. And like our neighbors would come by, and they'd be like, "What are you guys doing in here?" It was like 2 dudes in a desk in an empty warehouse.
We're actually a startup.
Yeah, I'm like, actually. But anyway, that was kind of weird in its own thing. And before we had the equipment, we were just writing software. But like before you actually start cutting parts, it's hard to know exactly what to do. So we were writing a bunch of the customer facing stuff. But the day we got the laser was probably, I would say, is like the highest stress day of like the entire startup journey so far, because like we had bet the farm on getting this laser. We had picked this specific, facility, and it's not like those are not decisions you could change really fast, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't just move into another spot
Right.
tomorrow. And the riggers show up, and
And like unlike most founders, you actually do have a family, and so you have like 300K, then you spend 200K on this laser because
yeah.
no one will finance the
Yeah.
purchase of it,
Yeah.
and then you have $100,000 left. Like,
yeah,
what was that like?
it was very stressful.
Very
Honestly,
stressful.
very stressful.
How many months of runway did you have?
I mean, we were barely burning anything at that
Okay.
point, but maybe we could have lived for another 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Mhm.
But
So not infinite.
definitely not infinite. But yeah, the day we got the laser, the rigger shows up, and he's like, looks extremely and visibly stressed. He's like saying a lot of swear words. He's like, "Who sold you this job?" And he's like looking at the garage and the access and stuff, and he's like, throwing papers on the floor. He's like very angry, and I'm like, "Oh, our laser's not gonna fit. Like we're not gonna be able."
It's not gonna work.
I'm like trying to think, okay, what happened? Like maybe we could put it in the back outside. Like that's
Like
probably
smash
not
a
gonna
little
work.
bit through the wall or something.
Yeah, or maybe the landlord can like tear down a wall or something. But ultimately, they were able to fit in and out. To show you the video, but it like barely fit. They got it in through this garage door right here, but it was very very tight fit. And I just remember being extremely stressed. I was like sitting
Yeah.
at the table, like watching, wondering if it was gonna get put inside of the warehouse or not. Well, ultimately, it ended up fitting, so
You figured
it
it
all
out.
worked out.
Yeah. So when you first started out, you already know that there's like some demand for mailboxes, $3,000 a
Yeah,
month
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But how did you end up getting like the first few customers?
First few customers came from Twitter, and like we also talked to a ton of like hardware engineers and stuff before launching. So like after we hung out with James and stuff, I like we went through YC in 21, so part of the YC network, and I reached out to a bunch of hardware engineers like through the YC network and talked to a whole bunch of people about various different manufacturing processes, what's difficult, what's not, etc. And so like weldments came up very often, and we knew we had to kind of like in order to get like good margins and stuff, we'd have to do the cutting, the bending,
Just
the fabrication,
vertically integrate the
everything,
entire
right?
thing.
And so
Yeah.
so we launched with just laser cutting, so just laser cut sheet metal parts, and there's like a variety of places you can get that today online or whatever. But first customer was Pete, actually.
Really?
Pete, he is at Toolpath now, but he was working on his own startup, and he actually ordered through our API. He was actually our first and only customer to order through the API. We plan on releasing like a full API for ordering fabricated metal components, but it's been pretty much like in alpha stage for a while, right? And so we kind of consume that internally and we use it to power our own stuff, but eventually we want to release that to customers. But yeah, Pete was like an early adopter. Twitter basically is the long story short. We got handfuls of customers from Twitter. We started doing a little bit of posting on Instagram. We got some bigger customers from Instagram, and then now it's been kind of like word of mouth, relationships, that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah, and you actually you said yesterday that you like for at least one of the orders to Pipe Dream, you just like put it all in a truck, I believe, and then just like drove 200 miles to Austin to deliver in person to Garrett.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you think about like building customer relationships and kind of like going above and beyond for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is such a tech bro thing to say,
Right.
but there's this like Sam Altman thing where it's like, get on the plane in marginal situations or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a plane. It could be a rented car, which is like what I actually
You
use.
could rent a U-Haul.
Yeah, I rented a car and I drove down there, and I really like the Pipe Dream guys. They were like, some of my first like hardware founder buddies, right? And hadn't met them in real life, but yeah, I mean, I think like, and maybe it's kind of like the YC thing of like, do things that don't scale, but like manufacturing in particular is like a very relationship based kind of business, right? And so like if you can meet your customers in person, I think it's almost always worth it. Like even if they're like a small order volume, right? Like if there's a customer doing something interesting, they order a couple $100 worth of parts, like I'm totally down to like go see them. So yeah, I've done that like a number of times.
You start out building stuff with software, and then you go into the like robotic arms and stuff, and now you're doing this.
Yeah.
What were some of the like earlier ideas and kind of path that got you here?
Yeah, okay, I could tell you the whole story.
Yeah.
So maybe helpful also to get a bit about my personal background. So
Sure.
I used to work at the gas station before I became a software engineer. So I did maintenance. So I did like plumbing, electrical, HVAC. I would go.
This is like a special gas station, right?
It's Quick Trip. Yeah, it's like a really large private gas station. They do tens of billions of dollars of revenue. They have their own in-house maintenance staff, and I had a good job, good career there, right? So I started when I was like 19 or 20 there, and I would just fix everything, right? Like anything that broke, basically I fixed. And I would drive around fixing stuff, and I got into software by accident because I was always like building and tinkering on stuff like on the weekends. I grew up working on cars and stuff, and I wanted to build a kegerator.
A kegerator?
Yeah, a kegerator
What
is
is
like a
that?
beer machine. It's like you take an ice chest and you hack it so that it's like dispenses beer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not a big drinker, but I just saw it like one day on Reddit and thought it was really cool. Um, and people were using Raspberry Pis to control them. So I bought a Raspberry Pi. Long story short, I ended up really liking programming. Figured out it was like a good career path. Maintenance was cool. I was making pretty decent money, but I had a young family, and I had to work weekends, holidays, overnights. I had to be on the roof in like 100+ degree weather, tons of overtime and stuff. And so uh, I started learning programming. Went back to school for computer science, and then I got a job as a software engineer. So that's kind of like the background of like how I got into software engineering
Yeah.
in originally, right? Um, so the genesis of the company, it started in summer 21. I built a course to teach people Vim, which is like a way to move around your code editor. It is like kind of like a code editor itself, but like the key bindings are really powerful, right? So like, programmers, it's a way for them to kind of edit code extremely fast.
Is this
And
something that you just like put on Udemy or something? Or like
I,
YouTube?
I made my own course, right?
Okay.
So I made my own course. It was like its own platform and everything. And I put it online and I made like 10 grand in a month.
Really?
And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I'll just make like 50 of these courses and then I'll be
Extremely profitable.
extremely rich and it'll be
Yeah.
great. And, I can just like, do fun hardware stuff, like work on cars or whatever in my free time. Well, it turns out I didn't really know a lot of other stuff to teach. Like I had like some novel insight about teaching Vim, which related to like muscle memory, but um, what I realized was it was like really hard. The hard part of delivering the course wasn't like putting the contents down. It was like doing all of the other stuff,
Like
right? Like creating
research
the
and
no, like creating the website, the authentication, like the payments, basically hooking up all the stuff that let you make the course. So I ended up building this like course platform for developers, and that's what I got into YC with, and that's what this company started with.
was
So
that
it's the
Diode?
same. No, it was called Slip actually.
Slip. Okay.
Yeah, so in summer 21, we got into YC, solo founder with that idea, right? I think at the
Crazy.
time I had, I don't know, tens of users, maybe $500 monthly recurring revenue, went through the batch. And the long story short is like, I just kind of happened into that idea and there was like a lot of momentum. And then I started figuring out like, oh, like startups are really hard, right? Like they're really hard no matter what you pick. And it just felt like, I was waiting to do my real startup, right? Like it felt like, oh, okay, like maybe I'll do this path. Like you do some software thing, you have some kind of small exit, and then you can work on like something more interesting, like hardware or whatever. And hardware software was like how I got into the field originally, and that's where I thought like a lot of the value creation, a lot of interesting problems and stuff would come from.
What was your experience going through YC? Was that like a positive thing? Were there, I don't know, did anything come from it that would you believe wouldn't have happened if you
I mean,
hadn't gone through it?
I think general like was just like a Silicon Valley outsider, right?
Mhm.
Like, I live in Fort Worth, Texas, never worked at like a really big software company, a startup or
Yeah.
anything, right? Like, so it was
Got
just
like
like
fast
really,
tracked.
really cool. I mean, I'm pretty anti-credentialist, like in general. Like I dropped out of college 2 times, and I think that the one interesting thing is like credentials can be like an accelerant for sure. Like after having the YC stamp, it's like, oh, people default like taking more seriously, right? But yeah, I mean, it was basically like crash course in startups, like how to raise, like how investors think, how to think about growing your company, how to go through the hard stuff. I think YC was like, yeah, I love YC. I think it was like a really great thing. I think that if I were ever to do another startup, I would probably try to do YC again. I definitely recommend
Even
it
if
to
you're like already successful?
probably, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's like
Okay.
also just like from a fundraising standpoint, like I think like the demo day auction mechanic is like super powerful and stuff, so it could be like an accelerant. And I did the batch remote, so this was like during COVID, so it was a little different. Now it's like all
Mm.
in person and stuff. But yeah, I made like lifelong friends. It's easier to get connected with other YC founders and stuff. So yeah, I definitely think like the value that they add versus like the cost or whatever, it's heavily in favor of doing it for sure.
Yeah. And so at what point did you kind of like you come out of the batch and you decided that the path that you were going down was not what you wanted to be going
So
down?
we spent like about a year doing like random developer education stuff. And it was just like over time, just getting more and more convinced like this isn't what I wanted to do for the long run, right? And people always say like you should do a startup like you could see yourself doing for like a decade plus. And at first I thought like, I think I'm gonna just like shut down, return capital, and like go off and do
Oh,
something
so it was
else.
like pretty bad.
It was pretty
Like,
bad,
yeah.
and like at the point I think we had like $1 million in the bank or something because we'd made money doing developer education stuff, but it was obvious it wasn't going to be like a venture scale thing. And like one of the things that made it obvious too is like this is when like Copilot was starting to come out, and I was like, oh, no one's gonna buy developer courses. Like this stuff is getting really really good, right? Like I think AI is gonna like kind of like eat this whole market, and so it was like obvious that it wasn't gonna work. We had raised money, and all our we mostly raised like from angels and stuff. We did like classic like 2021 like party round kind of thing, and ultimately ended up talking to a YC partner, Diana, about the whole situation and like what I wanted to do and stuff. And she basically was encouraging of like you can always just tell your investors like, hey, this isn't working. These are the areas I'm interested. There's pros and cons of that, and that's ultimately a decision up to you. Whether you want to shut down, return capital, or whether you want to kind of try to keep going. And so anyway,
And were you gonna try and like, or potentially give the investors individually like the opportunity to just take their money out on
yeah,
it,
I
a
think
new
that was,
idea?
yeah. I was
Interesting.
like
Okay.
basically thinking about like both options, either offer to return all the capital, pro rata or whatever,
Yeah.
or, go down a new path. And
Yeah.
so ended up deciding to go down a new path. And that's when we started working on Dio, which is what you were talking about at the beginning. But yeah, that was a stressful time for sure. I think like in general spent way too long knowing I should pivot and do something different and like waiting because of like social norms, etc. And now I'm
There's
like
just like inertia
inertia,
behind
right?
you.
Like I also
Yeah.
think like in general, like, and obviously I don't have everything figured out. We're still very, very early, but I think like more people should pivot more drastically faster if the thing that they're working on is not working. Like a lot of people pivot to something slightly adjacent, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Was that like the second major pivot that you've done in your life? Because I know that you went to school for like music and then just decided randomly, nope, this is definitely not going to work.
Yeah.
And then you kind
So
of, changed that.
I don't know. I think I've made those kind of decisions a number of times, but yeah, the music thing was like, I did music in high school. I played the saxophone. I was in jazz band. I really liked that. I thought I wanted to be either a jazz musician or a music educator. And I went to University of North Texas, the largest music school in the U.S., very competitive. And I just saw what the career opportunities for a music education major were, and they were grim.
They were grim.
And then I had my first son at that same time, so I was like, I need to go make money now. And working at the gas station made more money than I was going to make as a music teacher.
Yeah.
So that was like the first kind of, I guess, like major life kind of thing. And then, eventually getting into software. That was like an interesting thing in itself because I was still working full time doing maintenance, like, 50 plus hours a week, and then going to school for computer science, like in the evenings. And I did that for a few years. And my whole goal there was like, can I just go long enough until I get a job? And so a few years in, I got an internship. Once I got an internship, I like burned the boats. I was like, okay, let me just quit. I'll cash out my 401k from the gas station job. I'll quit my gas station job and I'll quit school. And I'll just go as hard as I can on this internship. And I think if I do a good job, they'll just hire me full time.
Yep.
And a lot of my friends and like, classmates and stuff thought I was
A little
slightly
crazy.
crazy, right? But I had like confidence like it would work for some reason. I mean, the company never told me that, hey, if you do a good job, we'll just hire you full time.
You just believed it.
I just believed it, and then it happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Has there been any like advantages to being in Fort Worth versus, SF or El Segundo? Because I've got a few ideas of what might be advantages.
yeah, I mean, I think in
Um,
general, like for this type of business, like DFW is a pretty good place to build it, right? So like metal fabrication is like pretty low margin. In DFW, you can actually get industrial space like fairly cheap. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of aerospace talent and manufacturing talent in DFW. It's the second largest manufacturing hub in the U.S. So there's a lot of like reasons to be here, but my primary reason is actually family based.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Would it have worked if you had tried to do this in like San Francisco or LA with much higher like real estate costs and stuff?
I think, yeah,
You think so?
probably.
Probably.
I think it could work. The way I think about it is like, certain people have the optionality to be somewhere, and if you
Yeah.
do, like, you should probably be at the best place to build the thing. But if you don't have the option to be somewhere, okay, like you can't. If you can't change it, then you can't change it. You need to do the Peter Beck thing, right? So like, Peter Beck started Rocket Lab in New Zealand when there was, not only was there like no rocket industry, there was basically no aerospace industry.
There's no space industry.
Right?
There's no rocket industry.
Yeah. And, he made it happen. And so like, I think that, basically like, if you are in a circumstance that you cannot change, you can just make it work, right? Like, I want to work at a cool hardware startup doing something really awesome. There's not really a lot of opportunities at DFW. I'll build it myself.
You're working with the same tenant or the like same landlord.
Yeah, same
right?
landlord. Yeah.
So how did you initially like get in touch with the landlord for this place, and then how has that relationship like evolved over the past, year and a half?
The landlord for this place is really awesome. He has a background in manufacturing, then he ultimately ended up getting into real estate. But we found him through our just like normal real estate agent. We had a regular small startup office, like the typical, like, oh, it's like an old building, it has bricks and stuff, and it was just like a small 1,000 square foot space. And then we told our real estate agent that helped us find that place, like, hey, we need to find a manufacturing spot. And so we toured a handful of spots, couldn't really find anything that great. And then also like we were in a kind of a weird situation where like we'd never done manufacturing and didn't have any revenue for the previous year. And so he was like, well, let me introduce you to this guy. He's like a interesting landlord and he likes collecting interesting tenants.
He likes collecting interesting
tenants.
tenants.
That's a strange way of putting it. And so we ended up meeting him, and he was just like the most kind of like pro startup, pro manufacturing kind of landlord that, I don't know, basically that you could find, right? Like definitely has a soft spot for manufacturing and startups and stuff. And they've been awesome, right? So like anytime there's any kind of issue, they help us resolve it. They like did a bunch of tenant improvements, really kind of like startup friendly lease. They want us to win. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So at what point do you're in this place for, I think the last like year and 4 months ish, something around there.
Yeah.
At what point do you wake up in the morning and you say, oh my God, we have to get a bigger space. We just have too much going on. And
I mean, I think it was like when we started taking over some of the common area of the building for sheet metal storage.
Right.
Like, so there's like a common area. There's multiple tenants in this building. We just started sticking stuff over there.
Just putting stuff in there.
And it was supposed to be like pretty temporarily. It's like, and then it's like, we just kept getting more and more orders.
Just kept them piling up.
Bigger stuff. And I was like, I think we actually need more space. And this space has been really great to start with, but it's like super not ideal, right? It's like partitioned off, really weird. Too much of it is like office space and stuff. So yeah, super excited to get a new spot.
Do you have any crazy stories about buying used equipment at like an auction or anything like that?
I do have some stories about used equipment. So we wanted to start offering PEM insertion, which is like basically you press hardware into sheet metal. So you can press like metal studs and nuts and stuff like that. So anyway, I found one at a metal shop like 2 hours away, and I go, and it's like this enormous like metal fabrication kind of company. They go through like, I don't know, they must have had like 20, 30 plasma tables. They build bumpers and components and stuff like that. And the guy tells me like, oh yeah, like we just like took this out of our other facility, works great. And he was like, seemed like a good dude and everything. And like, I basically, they didn't have it hooked up, and they didn't have a way to hook it up really easily because it needed air and plugged in and everything. And he was like, it was working. It was great. This is the best one. Anyway, buy it. And we hook it up and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all.
No, it doesn't work. And it turns out like they took it out of the other facility like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I think like one of the cylinders is like jammed in it or whatever. And so
had they like not turned it on in 3 or 4 years? And so
I think so. We plugged it in when we got it and it like turned on, but like we didn't actually like hook it up.
So that gave you like a false sense of confidence.
Exactly, right. And so then actually this week we just bought another one to replace that one, because it's like, okay, we need to offer this. Like we've turned down a lot of work because we're not offering it. And so
how often are you turning down work because you just don't have like all the machines or anything like that, or enough staff or whatever?
Not super often, but it does come up.
Okay.
Right. Like maybe a handful of times a month, but sometimes it's like pretty meaningful amount of work.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it could be like tens of thousands of dollars worth of work. It's like, hey, we don't have that capability or whatever.
At what point do you have to make the decision or the call on like, okay, let's make this investment in some machine, even if it's just like 1 or 2 orders that you have?
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of it's just kind of like vibes based. Like, okay, like
you're not doing a spreadsheet. Like, you're just like,
yeah, it's like, okay, some customers ask for this. I think more customers will ask for it. And some of it is like the customers will not even tell you, right? They'll just go somewhere else. Right? But yeah, so we bought a new PEM sorter this last week. I go this time. I'm gonna make sure it works in person. So I bring the part that I want to test. I bring our own tooling, our own hardware. I go and I press all the parts, and it works great. And I was like, okay, cool, let's buy it. So it kind of sucks that we had to buy this other one. Maybe we can salvage it for parts or something. And
Did you get your money back at all on that, or after you buy it,
definitely no. It's like
you're just
as
getting
is kind of thing, whatever.
Okay.
And so, there's probably some case with like getting to the point where you just always buy new equipment as soon as possible is probably the right move.
Just because it's not worth the risk of just like downtime and all these other things.
Downtime, yeah, missed promises, like stuff like that, right? And so like we buy the new machine, it works great, they deliver it. And then just today I found out like they accidentally cracked the screen on it. And so like you go to try to use it, but the touchscreen doesn't work now. And so, we have a customer like waiting on those parts, but luckily I ended up finding like a replacement screen and like having like the maintenance background where I like fix stuff all the time. It's like very comfortable to like
Very
go.
helpful.
Yeah. And so anyway, I ordered one. It should be here tomorrow. I shouldn't pick the deadline or anything, but it is definitely annoying to have to deal with.
Do you have any really good stories of, you take on some customer contract or whatever, and then for whatever reason, shit just goes horribly wrong? Whether it be machines or
We do,
wheel
yeah.
popped,
We
anything
do.
like that.
It does happen way less often now.
Okay.
What
was it like in the early
complete
days?
noobs in the early days. So like we definitely sent people, we accidentally sent someone like the wrong material because we got it mixed up. Like, oh, we accidentally sent you like stainless when it's supposed to be
How do they
aluminum.
respond when you accidentally send them the wrong
I think
material?
that in general, like, I don't know, like being earnest with customers and stuff and like admitting when you made a mistake and then just offering to fix it as fast as possible is like really,
It's just the best remedy.
yeah. And then they're happy with that, right?
Well, what's
And so-
interesting is like I even heard about this. I think there was like a study done where the optimal hotel stay is that you go to the hotel, something small, minor gets messed up,
Yeah.
and then they like very quickly fix it, rectify it, and like make you say sorry and everything.
Yeah.
And that like leads to the best possible experience.
I think that
as a
makes
hotel
sense, right?
guest.
Because it's like, okay, they actually care, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it like comes down probably to caring. Another thing that we happened was like, we hadn't really had a lot of experience like shipping stuff, and we got an order from this guy Jack. He was in the YC network. His company's called Beanstalk. They're a really really cool company. They do indoor vertical farms, and they build a lot of their own automation. They're really cool.
Yeah.
And we got it was a really big order for us at the time. I think it was like
Percentage of revenue, it's like 50% or something.
it was huge, right? But it was like, in the grand scheme of things, not like a gigantic order for a manufacturing company, but it was really big for us at that time. And so we made all the parts. Also, I should say at this time, like me and Alfredo were making all the parts, like me and the software engineer.
It's just you and you.
So
and
like
one
we were like in
buddy.
the factory like all day, writing software in the morning, and then like fulfilling all the orders like in the evening. And we did that for the first like 3 or 4 months. But yeah, we made all the parts. They came out great. We packed them up, and we didn't use a strong enough box to ship them out. We should have used a crate. We used the cardboard box to ship it out in on a pallet. And FedEx dropped the parts off of the side of the pallet, and they
just destroyed all of them.
It destroyed most of them, right? So like,
and did you have like insurance at the time to cover,
no,
accidents?
No,
and
we
stuff?
didn't get insurance on that because it's like, yeah, you just eat it. It's probably faster, just like remake the parts, right? So like the raw material cost is only like a small portion of like the total cost or whatever. And so like, rather than dealing with all the insurance stuff and trying to do that, you just like remake the parts for the customer. And so I think they ended up having like not a super great experience with us, which was, pretty sad from our end. But we offered to like remake all the parts that were completely damaged, and we like hustled and got them back out to them.
Yeah. Are you like one of those people that's or one of the founders that are like super frugal, where you just really don't want to spend money, and in the early days you maximize the amount of possible output that you and the co-founder can do, and then slowly over time decide to bring on one person as it just becomes overwhelming?
We just have never had a lot of money. So I think
that helps.
By necessity have been, pretty frugal.
But you're also willing, there's this like counterpoint where not everyone will take action if they don't have any money.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's some people that just decide not to do anything if they don't have any money, and you're willing to take the risk.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially if it's going to like accelerate or make things faster, or like let us get more customers or whatever, like we'll pay for it.
What are the things that are like the biggest, I don't know, not KPIs, but the things that you're most focused on when you wake up in the morning, the top things on your mind?
how to make more parts faster and cheaper, I think is like the prime directive, right?
Yeah.
So like, if we can make a higher mix of parts at a higher volume and we could do it cheaper and we could continually improve that, then you get a better and better business every time. And so like, there's a lot of stuff where like you build it once and then you can like reap the benefits of that forever, like
Yeah.
as long as like the company keeps going, right? And so we think about like those kind of decisions like when we're making software. um so like, yeah, I mean also, I guess the other side of it is like customer experience, right? So like how do you build like a beloved brand? I think like in the space we're in, there's like a handful of competitors that people like really love and like really well known.
Yeah.
And I think like there's something to be said about like having like very worthy competitors that like it makes you better and stuff too.
Are these
Um,
just like super, long lasted businesses
no, they're
where?
fairly new. They're
Oh,
like
really?
basically doing similar stuff to what we're
Hmm.
doing. Um, and they're online and engineers basically before these companies came around didn't have a great place to get parts online. Now there's like a handful of places that are doing it, but as a percentage of like the total manufacturing volume in this space, it's still pretty small, right? And so like,
When you make an improvement,
mm,
how fast do the competitors try to copy that?
I think we're like the small fry. We're
Really?
still like the small ones. So I don't know necessarily if like anyone's really paying that close attention to us. We try not to like pay too close attention to competitors either, and just like talk to customers and stuff. I think that it's probably a failure mode to
Yeah.
be like hyper focused and super fixated on the competitors, and instead just like see like what are the holes in
Focus
the
on the people that are
market.
actually giving you money.
Right. And like, what are the holes in the market for them? Like, because they can go to your competitors and a lot of them cross shop across, different competitors and stuff for different stuff. And so I think for us, it's like, what's the direction that we can go to that we will be like uniquely positioned, to tackle. And so I think like the assembly, fabrication, the welding side is something that, hasn't really been offered out there on this kind of like really quick kind of turnaround, instant quote kind of thing. So,
I know that you've used Twitter a lot
yeah.
for great benefit, to great
Mm.
benefit. Do you have any good stories from just serendipity that came from using Twitter and trying to engage with people?
Yeah. I think I've met some of like my best buddies that I like talk to like pretty frequently and stuff like off Twitter. Um, I think like getting into YC was kind of like in a roundabout way
Do you want to
through.
explain how that happened?
Yeah, so the whole YC thing, I basically was a software engineer. I was building a bunch of random stuff, putting out there into the world, and I say putting it out there as like
Just
publishing to a URL, and then no one comes,
no one
right? And
comes.
it's like I spent some time trying to build software for like tradespeople, and I would like try to meet up with them, and I never had that much traction. But I was always like building random projects on the side, and then
Yeah.
finally, I started posting on Twitter. I thought Twitter was like for arguing about
Hmm.
politics, and I joined Twitter and I just started doing the whole like build in public thing, and there was just like a lot of momentum from that, right? And then I started becoming aware of like more of the startup ecosystem of YC in general and
Did you just
stuff.
not know about startups
I
prior
mean,
to
I knew
that?
about
Like you were,
startups,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Uber, Airbnb, and stuff, but it didn't really seem plausible to like go raise money for a startup or something for myself. Like I thought that was something that happened to other people. So anyway, started posting on Twitter, and really it was like one kind of chance encounter. There was a guy, Farza. A lot of people on Twitter know him.
Yeah.
Farza's awesome. He was the founder of a company called Build Space. They raced from like A16Z and a bunch of people and stuff. And they went through YC, but he went through YC as a solo founder,
Hmm.
and I knew he had come from Florida, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like I'm a solo guy, and I live in a definitely not Silicon Valley place.
So you just
And so
like
I
DM him?
DM'd him and I was
Yeah.
like asking about it, and he was like encouraging, right? And I was like, okay, maybe I should apply. And then I got a handful of other like YC founder people that kind of like helped me out with my application and stuff. And the
They
whole
like vouch for you?
I don't know if anyone recommended me
Mm.
necessarily because they have like a recommendation
Yeah.
system, but yeah. So in a roundabout way, like just like from tweeting and stuff, like ended up getting into YC. So it kind of like started me on the whole software journey.
How are you finding like great talent? I understand the process of finding great software
Yeah,
engineers
yeah,
and, people else going to know, it makes sense.
yeah.
What about you?
Uh, Twitter, ironically,
Really?
also. So we hired this guy, John Rahagan, I think is how you say his last name. I'm not entirely sure. He might watch this. What's up, John?
Yeah.
but John is great. I found him because he was like tweeting a bunch of manufacturing stuff.
Yeah.
And he was going to A&M, and it was really easy to see that he had built cool stuff. Like he had a personal website. I could still see like he was a doer, right? And what made me reach out to him, I think, is like one day he posted like, all I want for Christmas is a Trump fiber laser, which is like a very niche.
It's a low TAM banger.
Yeah. I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. And anyway, he ended up coming to the shop. We met him, and then I was like, oh, this guy's like really smart.
really
He's a
good.
brilliant guy. And the interview process was super straightforward. I basically knew he was smart and capable. He'd
just talked
done
with him?
first robotics and stuff, and he had like, you could easily see like there was like online stuff that he'd done really cool, interesting things, right? And so basically, I was like texting him. I was like, hey, do you want to come help us do some hardware design stuff? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's do a 5-minute phone call. We talked for 5 minutes, and then he was hired as like he worked for us part-time, like an intern, and now he's at SpaceX.
Oh man.
But
How long did he work with you?
not super long, maybe like 6 months or something.
Okay.
And so like, yeah, we haven't had a ton of experience on like hiring like hardware people, but I think in general, like finding people that have evidence of their abilities, and then also really smart people vouching for other people. So like John's replacement is actually Ryan, who John and Ryan were on the same first robotics team that won Worlds. And when I just invited Ryan to come show up to the shop, and I was like, what have you built? And he pulled up his camera roll and showed me a bunch of really cool stuff that he built. And I was
And
like,
it's
okay,
like, oh, all right,
great.
this kind
And
of
then
checks
John
all the
vouches,
boxes. We're probably
this is
good.
it, right? And that's not the case for all engineering candidates,
No.
even mechanical engineering. You would think that like, if you go to school for mechanical engineering, you come out, you have like, you've built a bunch of cool stuff, but like, that's not always the case.
Is that like even typically the case, or is it kind of rare for someone like that?
It's probably more of an outlier. I
Yeah.
think like a lot of hardware startups are having luck hiring people that have done like First Robotics, Vex, or FSAE, or
Have you noticed that the people that tend to have those like big portfolios of just having done a bunch of awesome stuff, do they tend to also be more public about it? Or is it
Not
not
necessarily.
necessarily correlated?
not necessarily.
Okay.
I think as long as they just have the evidence, right? Like I've had candidates, and then I'm like, okay, cool. Can you send me something cool that you've built? And then they're like, well, I can't because so and so reason, whatever.
NDA, something
That's
like
the
that.
classic excuse, right?
Right.
But like,
I have
I
like
don't
20
know.
NDAs and
Yeah.
don't worry, I've built stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you're super passionate and you're really into it, like you will have some evidence.
Yeah.
Right. If you have zero evidence, it's probably like a red flag.
Let's end on like, what's the hardest thing you've overcome?
I don't know. Life's been great, man. I think life's been great. I think it's all like relative. Like I have a pretty like the variation in my affect is not super wide, right? Like Briley earlier was like, Kenneth, have you ever yelled at anybody? And I think like in general, like like grew up like really poor and stuff, but like my parents grew up like extremely poor. Like my mom's from Peru. My dad had 11 siblings, and he was like homeless for a time when he was a kid and stuff. And so like
Are you just generally like a really happy person?
I would say I'm generally mostly happy, but I mean, I've had hard stuff happen, right? Like I had my first kid when I was 20 years old. I had to drop out of school and get a job at the gas station. It looked like I had no career aspects like whatsoever. Going back to school for computer science, like while working full time, having a family and stuff was like a really grindy part of my life, but like I also really enjoyed it. Like it was like fun looking
Felt
back.
fulfilling, or
It's more like type
enjoyable?
type 2 fun, right? So like, train for a marathon or whatever. It's like, oh, it really sucks in the moment. This really sucks, but I know if I keep doing it, like there's gonna be like the outcome I want on the other end. And then like the kind of stuff we talked about, right? Like the startup journey has been hard. There's been like very low points where we thought we were gonna like lose all our money, fail my investors, fail everyone that worked for us, and all that. But I mean, things have been hard, but like, I mean, relatively, we live in a first world country. I get to do the thing that I really love, like every day. I get to come and like work with cool customers and stuff. And so like, I don't know if I would say
it's been overall pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was maybe like a weird way. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I could definitely be like grandiose about, oh, it was so hard, like going back to computer science and like working full time. Yeah, it was hard for sure.
But just trying to do good and make the right decisions to go down. Are you now in like a position where you think, I'm going to be super excited to run this company for the next 10 or 15 years? Like, have you finally achieved that?
I think it could be like generational. Like, I think I could like,
you want to just do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I think I could work in manufacturing the rest of my life. I think there's endless problems to solve. I think it's one of the most interesting spots right now, and also like one of the most needed spots. I think that like, I don't know, it's just like the flavor of problems of manufacturing like touch like everything I'm interested in, right? It's like there's like a hardware automation aspect, there's the software side, there's like getting to meet like really cool people building
Yeah.
cool stuff. Um, and it's like playing like Factorial like in real life
I
too.
know.
You know, it's like you get to come in, you try to make things better, and it's like, oh sweet, like now we make more money for every order, this is so cool. And you get to buy new machines. Like nothing's cooler than like getting a new machine, right? Like you get the new machine, it comes in, it's on the semi truck,
It's
it's
like
wrapped
the
in
best birthday
plastic.
present or Christmas
Yeah,
present.
yeah. I can't wait till the day when every day is new machine day, and I think like that's a possibility eventually. And there's manufacturers that are big enough where they can say
That's
that.
happening.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that the very largest manufacturing companies are really large, right? They're doing many billions of dollars in revenue, and so like the ceiling is super high, and I think like the possibilities are really endless, and like also like very opportune timing, right? Like I was in the trades, I get into software. Oh, software is easy now. Like all the AI is doing software. But what I'm really interested is in like the software hardware kind of thing. And it
And
also
the AI
seems to
can't do
be,
that yet.
can't do it yet,
Yeah.
but it'll help. And if you own a factory,
Make it more efficient.
make it more efficient.